Hi everyone. So in this video I want to talk about some more built-in types that exist in Python, and the first one that I want to talk about is something called a tuple. Um, so a tuple is basically just an ordered uh, list of data. So the data inside a tuple could be integers, strings, anything. Um, but basically, what it means is, let's say something like a point on the coordinate plane, something like 1 comma 2 would be a tuple. It's actually a tuple of integers, and I can actually also have a tuple of first name and last name. So I can have that as well. So let's see how we create a tuple, and for that I just need to say some name for my tuple, equals. Also, while I'm at it, I also wanted to mention that these names that we give to variables, they cannot be the same as keywords. So Python has 33 keywords, I think, and what it means is that I can't have something like return is equal to something. I can't name my variable return because the word return already has a meaning in Python. So what I can do to create a tuple is just say t is equal to, and within parentheses I just need to say things like whatever I want in my tuple. So let's just create, let's say this is a point in 3D space, so that would be x, y and z. um, so this is my first tuple, and I can have um, a name tuple as well, which says, let's say, Shreyas, and my last name Nisal. um, these are two tuples that I have, and what I can actually do with these is I can just access one of them. So as we saw with strings, here as well, every element in a tuple is given an index. So in this case, this one would be given the index 0, this one would be given the index 1, this one would be given the index 2, and similarly here this would be index 0 and this would be index 1. So if I say t of 0, I'm going to get a 1, and I can also do something like t of 0 to 2, and this would just give me 1 and 2, because this 2 right here, as we saw, was exclusive, so it doesn't give me the element at address 2. And one thing that I don't think I mentioned this when talking about strings, but I can also do something like t of minus 1, and what this gives me is the last element. So if I do t of minus 2, it gives me the second last element. So that's another thing. And similarly, I can do something like name of 0, um, and that just gives me Shreyas. And I can actually even just say name, and this gives me the entire tuple. So this is about tuples, and I'll come back to talking a bit more about tuples after I talk about lists. So lists are basically just a list of integers or a list of strings or floating point numbers. So that's what a list is. And the way to define a list is to just enclose it within these square brackets right here. And here I can just say, let's say, Jan, comma Feb, comma March, and so on. And here again I can do L of 0, just as I can do for tuples. I can also do things like L of 0 to 2, and I get Jan and Feb. So by now I think you must be wondering what the difference between a tuple and a list is. So the difference here is that a tuple is said to be immutable, and what that means is that I cannot add things to a tuple. So once I create this tuple, I can't actually change this tuple. But that's not true with a list. So in a list, what I can actually do is I can just say l dot append, and I can actually just add, let's say, APR here for April. And now if I print out my list, it gives me Jan, Feb, March and April. So that's something that I can't do with a tuple, but I can do with a list. So another important method in case of a list that I wanted to show you was, let's say I create a list L2, and here I give it, let's say, May, June and July. So that's my L2. What I can do here is say L dot extend and give this L2, and this time if I print L, it actually prints from Jan all the way up till July. So what the extend method does is, it works very similar to how append works. Both of these just add at the end, but the extend function actually adds an entire list to the end, whereas the append function just adds one element. So that's about lists. And the third thing that I want to talk about is something called a dictionary. And the way we make a dictionary is by using these curly braces here. So in a dictionary, how a dictionary works is that it has keys and it has values. So a dictionary is basically made of key value pairs, and what I can do here is say D of Jan. So in this case, Jan is my key, and I can give this a value. Let's say I give this a value 1, and I can do D of Feb equals 2. So if I actually print D now, what I get is Jan 1, Feb 2, and you can add more to this. But now what I can do is I can actually just print D of Jan, and it gives me 1. So that's about the dictionary. And another thing about dictionaries is that the keys need to be unique. So basically, if I now said D of Jan is equal to 4, and if I print D now, it won't actually give me Jan 1, Feb 2 and Jan 4. It actually just gives me Jan 4 and Feb 2. So if I try to assign a different value to the same key, it just overwrites the previous value. So these keys, all of these keys in a dictionary need to be unique. So that's about dictionaries. And the fourth and last type that I want to talk about is a set. So a set is just like sets in mathematics. So the way to define a set is to use these curly braces, and I can actually just add stuff to this set right here. And in case of a set, let's see, if I do s of 0, it actually gives me an error saying that set object does not support indexing. So basically what's going on here is that I have 1, 2 and 3 here, but in a set the ordering is not very important. In fact, there is no ordering at all. So saying s of 0 has no meaning at all. So that's one thing about sets. And another thing about sets is, like in math, we don't usually add duplicate elements to a set. So similarly, we can't add duplicate elements to a set in Python either. So let's just say I add a duplicate element here and I hit enter. It doesn't really give me an error here, but let's say I try to print s2. It just gives me a 1, 2 and 3. It doesn't give me the last one that I added. So that's about sets. And before I finish this video off, I just want to show you something. Let's just try a type on each of these. So let's try type of T. It gives me tuple. And let's try type of L. I expect a list here, which is what I get. And similarly, I can do type of D, and it gives me dict for dictionary. And if I say type of S, it gives me type set, which is what I expect. So that's it about these built-in types in Python, and we'll talk more about them in the next video, where we are going to be talking more about loops in Python. So I'll see you there.